Welcome back. How about a little talk of the table? Guys, how about a little talk of the table?
Let's do it.
It's very quiet for a talking table.
Amen.
We're gonna thank you, Dominic. We're gonna start with single-sex classrooms. Dozens of public schools across the country are now being targeted by the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, for creating single-sex classrooms. The single-sex classes began proliferating, maybe I need to go back to school, after the Department of Education relaxed restrictions back in 2006. Now, if you go even further back to 2002, there were only about a dozen public schools that were separating their classes by gender, but now an estimated 500 public schools offer single-sex classrooms. Supporters of the policy say that separation cuts down on gender-driven distractions, but opponents say the structure promotes gender stereotypes. The ACLU says that the practice conflicts with Title IX, that is the federal law banning sex discrimination in education. I'm curious because it doesn't seem on the surface to be discriminatory. It just seems to be segregatory, if I can make up that word. What do you think?
I think it just goes to the crux of the debate about education and it being a local decision or a personal decision. And we talk about this a lot, but whether it's your choice to send your child to a parochial school, the goal here is to have kids learn the best that they can. And if there is a situation where parents choose to put their child in this situation, if there's an option for it, and they're learning and excelling, I think it's a good thing.
So you're saying schools should be allowed to do it, but parents should be allowed to choose whether they want to send their kids to that school?
Yes, absolutely. They shouldn't be forced into it, but if there's an option and the parents want that for their child, I think it should be a local, personal choice, not dictated by the federal government, not dictated by the ACLU, and this is something Dominic's laughing.
She brought it back to school choice, which is a much larger talking point.
I think I would agree with that. I would agree with that sentiment. I was going to defer to you. I'll just make mine real quick. I will say, though, that I'm a little confused because when I started out, and I've told this to you before, Andrew, I was a dorm director up at Syracuse University and at SUNY Cortland, and the sexes were kept apart in college.
Right.
But now the way they do it is they're right next to each other. And I can't imagine a scenario where I was a dorm director and you got male and females right next to each other.
I can't imagine that scenario either, Dominic, with you as the RA. But there's a difference between dorms and classrooms. Ron, what do you think?
I think that we should look at what the data says, and it seems to be it's not very clear whether or not this is actually effective at actually raising test scores. So that should be where we actually look to decide if this is a good policy or not.
Aren't boys and girls going to have to figure out how to get along at some point anyway? I mean,
well, they're integrating them in the playgrounds and at lunchtime and recess, so it's not like they're entirely segregating them, but there's been a lot of studies about how people learn in different ways, and they're saying that boys tend to, learn better when they're together, and girls are more progressive in reading and other subjects. So again, it's a unique personal situation.
See, and I was learning to try to impress the girls. I figured that's
yeah, but that's what they're saying, that it can be a distraction. And I think at the bottom line, there has been some studies that show that.
I think that the jury's still out. I mean, there haven't been the research isn't as big as it should be. And for some people, I would have been more distracted to only have boys in my classroom when I was in high school.
There you go.
So I don't know that this is a one-size-fits-all sort of solution.
Exactly.
A very good point. Another one for Ryan. All right, up next, the Big Apple's Big Brother. The NYPD has partnered up with Microsoft to bring us the Domain Awareness System, a surveillance system straight out of a sci-fi movie. It allows the NYPD to access about 3,000 closed-circuit TV cameras around the city, and the link feeds with software to cross-check criminal and terrorist databases. But it doesn't stop there. It can also scan license plates. It can take radiation levels. The NYPD official line is that no person will be targeted solely because of race, ethnicity, or citizenship status. But I'm not so sure that every Muslim New Yorker or every Arab New Yorker would agree with that, as evidenced by the NYPD trailing Muslim groups out to Jersey and all that. Are we concerned that maybe this is the beginning of Big Brother? Or the next chapter of Big Brother?
I don't know about that. I fully support it, fully. But there has to be safeguards in place to make sure that it's not being abused. But it's the day and times that we live in, and if it's going to stop a potential terrorist attack or a crime from occurring, then bravo.
But if I want to aim those cameras at Dominic Carter all day long and just track
Please
where
don't.
and just track where he's going, but I mean, really, can you make sure? Can you really safeguard it so that somebody doesn't do something like that?
I think the NYPD has bigger fish to fry than following you where you're going. There's some very serious threats on the city, and the job of the police commissioner and the mayor is to be at the forefront of keeping us safe. And this is like something out of a CSI movie. It's really quite extensive. It's going to be used as a model in other cities, and there's a difference between being nanny state, which is some of the things that the mayor has been coming out with lately in this, and they already have traffic cameras and cameras on the corners, so it's not that much of a step, except that it integrates all the information.
Ryan, is it more CSI or 1984?
I think it's more 2050 or something. It's a real look into the future. I think that we're going to have technology is going to increase the way that we use surveillance. I think you're going to see domestic use of drones. This is the beginning of what will be a very long conversation over the next 10, 20 years, future of law enforcement.
All right, and that is going to wrap up the talk of the table. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
It was brief, but you certainly got in some great shots there and some great things. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, housing discrimination. 3 years ago today, Westchester County, New York, entered into a court-approved agreement with the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. So what's changed 3 years later, and why are both sides still sniping at each other? We'll have that when we return.